Welcome to the Healthy Investor Podcast with Bob Mastroianni, where you and I will learn from successful real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and other highly driven individuals about their journey and the healthy habits and routines that play an integral part of their growth. Before we jump into this podcast, I want to tell you a little bit about an event that's coming up this November and how you can be a part of it. Multifamily Mastery 5 in Orlando, Florida this November, sponsored by the Jake and Gino community. If you're a new investor looking to learn about multifamily investing, or if you're a seasoned investor looking to grow your multifamily business, this is the place to be. There's a lot of networking, education, and I just saw the speaker list and you will not be disappointed. Jam-packed with excellent speakers with experience in the multifamily industry. Multifamily Mastery 5, November 5th and 6th in Orlando, Florida. If you look at the show notes, I'll have a special link for Healthy Investor Podcast listeners only. Click on the link and enter code MASTERY2022 to get $200 off of your Multifamily Mastery 5 tickets. I'll be there in Orlando, and I hope to see you there too. All right, welcome back to the Healthy Investor Podcast. Today I have with me Dave Seymour. Dave's a retired firefighter and real estate investor for over 15 years. You may know him from Flipping Boston, which aired on A&E for multiple seasons. Dave's a no-nonsense investor with zero tolerance for inefficiency and speculation. He's grown to be one of the leading real estate investors in the country, and he has his team at Freedom Venture Investments. I was privileged to meet Dave, I guess about 11 years ago, and I'm grateful to have him on the show today, and it's so great to connect again. So Dave, how are you?
I'm good, Bob. How you doing, man? We were talking before we started there, and it's like, the intro is an intro. Pull out some bullet points, and it's okay for us to step over our own words. It doesn't have to be perfect because life isn't perfect. It's all about progress. And I just appreciate you asking me to do this. It's all good, man. Good stuff.
Yeah. Great. Thanks so much. So few different things I want to talk to you about, but I'm really grateful for you to take your time out to spend some time with me today. Just want to backtrack to sort of the beginning of your real estate investing career. I know, you were a firefighter in the Boston area, correct?
Yeah, correct. Just north of Boston. Yeah. Lynn, Massachusetts. They used to call it Lynn, the city of sin. You never come out the way you went in.
Okay. All right. I haven't been to Lynn. So maybe I'll have to check it out.
You'd know if you've been to Lynn. Yeah. I was a firefighter there for 16 years. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then you started your real estate investing career during your tenure as a firefighter, correct?
Yeah. So I won't do the full biology of biography, not biology, biography of, coming across. But I am an immigrant to the States, Bob. I came over from England in '86, came from a very blue collar kind of a background. There wasn't higher education in my home. My father was a heating and air conditioning guy. My mom a secretary at a bank. Great jobs. I mean, good people. No challenges. No craziness. But it was a case of there was only one methodology really to grow up and into in the English culture for me, and that was to trade time for money. Right? Go get a good job, as good of a job as you could. Put it that way. And very close to where I grew up on kind of like the English equivalent of. Wasn't quite like the projects that you think, the projects, don't go in there, you'll get stabbed. But it was government housing. That's what we grew up on. But right next to where we grew up was what we called an industrial estate. So think of light industrial, but it's all in one area. So you'd have various companies that we had a book publishing company, Twining's Tea. Actually is in Andover in Hampshire where I grew up.
Okay, I've heard of Twinings.
And then there was all the, Twinings. And then there's all the smaller industries. And, my dad said to me, go knock on all the doors of the factories at 16 years old, go knock on the doors, and then come home, son, when you got a job. And that was kind of it. And as valuable as that blue collar work ethic is, it doesn't create, I believe, massive opportunities for growth. So I bring that mentality with me to America. I moved up to London. I was in college for a little while, and living in the city was fun. You got different exposure, different opportunities. I like to, spend time in the comedy clubs, and I was a little bit of a drinker back then.
Okay.
And I fell in lust with my first wife, who was an American, and followed her to the States. So I came from London, England to West Virginia, which via New York City, which was nice. I lived in Greenwich Village for a while. But, to fast forward, I didn't understand why I wasn't a good employee, Bob.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I was later on in life that I figured it out. I got the entrepreneurial disease, right? The entrepreneurial gene of a lack of satisfaction, in what I was doing. Because, a 40-hour work week, the government 401k, all of the, the crap that is spoon-fed to the middle classes, I ate it. And I also paid the price of it, right? And that was financial illiteracy. And it was financial illiteracy that actually got me towards real estate investing. I'm working as a firefighter. It's 2006 and 7, around that period of time. And there was a program for first responders to refinance their home at 110% of market value on a 1, 3, or 5 year ARM. The interest rate would balloon, but it would be fine because real estate only ever goes up, Bob. It never goes down, right? Dave, you're a firefighter, right? You can earn this.
Real estate only goes up. And remember, you're going to be making more money 3 years from now.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like everybody had the line of crap and I ate it. And I preface it with financial illiteracy because that's what it was. I was illiterate. I didn't understand points. I didn't understand interest. I didn't understand balloons. I didn't understand, the true equity that was in my primary residence. And I found myself at a place in my life where everything was pretty crappy, brother, to be frank with you. I said I was a drinker back in London. I wasn't a drinker when I was on the fire department. I got sober in January of 1990. I've been sober 32 years. Wow. But that financial decision or decisions that I had made leading up to me changing my life dramatically, that was the closest I ever came to like just checking out. There's a price you pay for ignorance, for anything, right? And anyway, look,
wow.
I was in my second marriage. I was losing my house. I'd refinanced it like 3 times in 18 months. I think I owed about $480,000 on a house that was now worth $230,000.
Oof.
Right?
Wow.
a little upside down, Bob.
Yeah.
But I had worked construction in the fire department, and I had seen these investor types around, and something just clicked for me, man. I'm like, there's got to be a better way, because I was literally working 120 hours every week between 3 jobs, and that's a motivation that crushes your spirit, crushes your soul, crushes your energy, crushes your relationships. I couldn't be a good father to my then 8-year-old son, who's now 27. And I certainly couldn't be a husband to a wife or a father to a son. I just wasn't there. So I ended up at a seminar, and I did pretty good. This only took about 8 minutes. I ended up at a seminar for real estate investing. And it was the first time in my life that somebody spoke a different language, or more importantly, began to sow a seed of a different mindset for me. And they said that, trading time for money had a shelf to it. And the guy said, what would it be like if instead of you working for money, money worked for you? What would it be like if you went to the mailbox on the 1st of every month and there was a check in that mailbox because somebody else had traded their time for money and paid you a rental income? And they said, that's called passive income. And then the guy said, and if you do this well enough and often enough, and you do it with intelligence, and you do it with authenticity and decency and integrity, you can then start to look at what's called legacy wealth. And that's where you build something for the generations behind you. You get to participate in your charitable causes, and you don't have to worry about your bills anymore. And you reach that point. And once you tip over that point, he said, it could be a beautiful life or not. He said, but you decide what you want to do. And I think for me, that was in 2008 when everybody was running out of real estate. I went running in. And I've been very blessed to have a pretty substantial track record behind me since then. So anyway, that's the short version of how I started.
There's so much to unpack just from the short version there. I mean, it's so great. You're right. You know, when you talk about trading time for money, right? We all, in one sense, we like to say, you know, when people say I'm too busy, I don't have the time. We all have the same amount of hours in a day, the same amount of hours in a week. Mm-hmm. But then the other side to that is you only have so many hours in a week. And you know, your example is a great one in that you're working 120 hours a week in 3 jobs. And if financially that wasn't enough to do what you needed, you're out of hours.
Right. You are absolutely out of hours. There's a guy I follow for, you know, resetting my mindset as often as I can. He's a guy by the name of Jay Shetty, Shetty.
Ah, yes, I know Jay Shetty. Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I have to say Shetty because otherwise it sounds like Shetty, and nobody had ever. There goes. Is that a D-D-Y? But he has a video out there. I think it's called Time, and it talks about how the Buddha said the biggest mistake that man has made is believing that he has enough time. And then he breaks down in this video format, what is time? What is its true value? You know, the person who misses a flight, right? And they lose five minutes of time is enough. Or the person who just misses a car accident by a split second. And yet it always seems that when we're in love, time goes too fast. And when we're not motivated and when we're in the drudgery, time goes too slow. And you know, I've resonated that as best as I can in everything I've done, and I'm not good at it, brother. I mean, I just told you, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I quit 120 hours a week to work 140. But you know, the thing that's nice about, you know, being a business owner and being in a service-oriented business such as real estate is that, you know, we have choice. And if you think about it, you know, God, Buddha, you know, whoever, whatever you believe in, or nothing, we have the freedom of choice as human beings. And that's a gift, man. That's a gift. And to be able to surround yourself with like-minded individuals who are in collaboration, you know, with your goal and your journey, man, that's when it gets freaking exciting. I get to do something like this with my buddy Bob, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's nothing, even through Zoom, there's nothing but good energy attached to him. So I love that part of it. It's a blessing to be able to do that. And then on the, you know, on the sticks and bricks side of it, you take an ugly single family home, 2008, 9, and 10. Trust me, there was plenty of them all over the country that you could pick. And to make something beautiful and to have somebody pay retail for the product that you put on the market. And, you know, instead of waiting for the phone to ring for an overtime, right? So I could earn $200 in a firehouse. You know, I started bringing in checks of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 checks. Well, those are life-changing checks, man.
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
care who you are. Those are life-changing checks. So once you get a taste for that, it can become a little addictive as well. You know?
Started to change it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So when you overlapped, you were partially in the fire department still, you started flipping some properties, and just from a mindset perspective, I'm guessing you started to change. You started to see differences in what you wanted to do. And then you were surrounding yourselves, at least in the fire department. Was the mentality there still the same? Were people starting to catch on, or was it, you know, you always hear about how the fire department is a little bit of a, you know, breaker society, you know, what was that like? That's
such an insightful question. And we didn't even prepare that one. You suck. Yeah, look, it was up here in Boston, we have this, it's they call it either lobsters or crabs in a bucket, right?
Okay.
When one lobster is trying to jump out of a bucket or a crab is trying to jump out of the bucket, and there's 20 or 30 other lobsters or crabs in that same bucket, there is a mentality of crabs and lobsters to grab a hold of the one that's trying to get out and pull them down. And it's not just a fire department mentality. I mean, you know, union firefighters are very unilateral, right? They kind of think in a parallel sense rather than a vertical sense. And you know, I'm going to be 0 degrees with it, man. There's jealousy within that organization. It's a male-dominated world with a lot of ego, a lot of BS. You know, a lot of, hey, what's he doing? You know, like all of this stuff. Like as I was going through real estate and I was trying to see, I became entrepreneur, man. I wanted to save the freaking world, bro. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to share my new mental message. And if you just dump verbal diarrhea on people who are not ready to receive it, you know, I learned those lessons. But you know, out of that group, it was interesting. Like as I'm starting, guys are like, what do you mean you're a real estate investor? You suck, you're this, you're that. Like everybody's got a label on them. Like I was the bull. I was always the first guy in the fire, the last guy out, knocking down doors.
Right. You were the guy with the big axe, right?
Yeah, I wasn't, you know, I didn't have finesse.
Yeah.
And in real estate and in negotiations and stuff like that, you needed some finesse. So, you know, I was getting crapped on. And then when we landed the TV show Flipping Boston, it was so interesting. The same guys who were crapping on me before, but then the guys were saying, I always knew he'd make it. I always knew, you know what I mean? And then one guy, check this one out. One guy said to me, Seymour, he said, I always knew you were lucky. And I looked at him and I said, you know what, buddy? I said, it's got nothing to do with luck. Because if you look at the definition of luck, according to some people who are a lot smarter than us, and I mean generational back philosophers, luck is truly the definition of where preparedness meets opportunity.
Yeah.
And when that opportunity came up, I had done the work, man. I had done the webinars while they're watching the Bruins and the Celts and the Sox and all that stuff. I'm upstairs in my room learning. I'm online. I'm going through courses. I'm going through webinars. I'm attending. I'm participating. I'm all in. And, you know, that takes work and commitment. But this was the thing I needed to fix, was the 6 inches of detrimental thinking between my ears.
Yeah.
Because if you believe you can and you believe that you can't, hallelujah, brother, you're right. And I just worked at it. I worked very hard to reset my mindset and my expectations of success around me. And that didn't always parlay with my boys in the firehouse.
Yeah.
And I'll end with this because I think it's interesting. It was a guy, his name was Sully. We called him Skip, and he got on the fire department with me. He's about my age, maybe a couple of years younger. And Skip and I started Two Jakes Construction. And that was kind of like where my construction started. While we were in the firehouse, we did kitchens and bathrooms and decks. And our third buddy, Joel there, big old Portuguese, he would come in and play with us too. And Skip always said to me as I moved into real estate, he said, I can't do what you do. It's way too risky. Like, it's way too risky. And I thought to myself, I control the risk through education, right? The more educated I am, the reduction in risk. The reduction in risk, the more action I take. The more action I take, the more opportunities that will come. The more opportunities will come, the more opportunities for cash flow. And Skip just took a different route, not right or wrong, just different.
Sure.
His route was through promotions. And he actually texted me this week, Bob. And he said, I talked to the chief of the department. It's like a 180-man department, pretty big size department. And he texted me and he said, I was talking to the chief and we had the talk, he called it. And basically what the chief said was he's contemplating retiring. And the next guy up, because he's gone through the promotional ranks, is my boy, Danny Sullivan.
Sure.
So Skip's going to be, potentially, he hasn't got the job yet, but he's going to be the chief of the fire department, probably 275, 300K a year up here in the Northeast for the chief of the department, which is a beautifully respectable income.
Very good. Yes.
Great job, good city job, good pension. And yet, if you offered me to swap places with him, I would run for the hills. I couldn't do it. So my point of bringing that up is that, you know, one man's goals doesn't have to be in alignment with another one. You go seek like-minded people. And when you find that commonality, that collaborative approach. Like, I don't know what our business relationship is going to be, Bob, but we're going to be doing something. I already see it happen. Don't know what it is yet, but it's going to be there because that collaborative approach is there. So it was tough. I ended up, I say I retired from the fire department. I quit because it cost way too much money to go to the firehouse because my real estate career had taken off because I had implemented what I learned. So it's been a pretty interesting journey, to say the least.
Well, I appreciate you going down that road because, for me, and, a little bit of backstory for those who are listening. I mean, I had met Dave at a speaking seminar in Philadelphia at the Pyramid Club, I guess end of 2010, 2011, where my life was at that point. I had just purchased my first multifamily property. My wife and I purchased a 3-unit multifamily property in Philadelphia. My wife was at the time pregnant with my daughter. And, I look at where life has gone for me. And so I've done some fix and flip over the years. I've done some buy and hold, some multifamilies. I did a whole lot of wholesaling and acquisitions management and those sort of things. But, fast forward here we are 11 years later. And, one of the reasons that I wanted to go down that road with you about, the mental shift and the changing the people that you're around and the things that you're doing is really that I'm really heavily going through that transition right now. And, I sort of dabbled in that transition over the years. And you mentioned the kind of diarrhea conversation, right? You just want to sort of throw up on everybody where telling them what they should be doing. And the reality is, I sort of have to do it myself. The 2011 Bob that you met could have told you every Phillies stat, every player's name, right? I could have gone down the list with you of, this is what they need to do to win the World Series. And I haven't watched an inning this year, and I couldn't tell you anything about it because it's a bit of a reprioritization that's happened over probably in a serious way over the last 2 to 3 years. And so then it's what are your goals and what feeds those goals, and then what distracts from those goals. So some of the things that you were talking about and some of the changes that you had to make, I feel that I've been through a similar portion of that. And then I'm still kind of heading in that direction. And it makes me feel good to know that your response even of, right, what is luck, right? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And that preparation phase, I think sometimes people think the preparation phase should be a month, 2 months, 3 months. And the reality is the preparation is that quiet time that nobody sees for a really long time. And similar to what you were saying about, you wind up on a 4-season show, on A&E, and everyone's watching it and learning about fix and flip. Well, no one saw the 5, 6, 7 years leading up to that, where you made sacrifices and you made changes to your life, right?
Nobody saw me on an auger. You know what an auger is? A 4-man auger. We drilled down to the frost line in Boston, right, to pour a footing for a deck. Nobody saw me spinning around on one of those suckers in January because the only job I could find was a deck job. Right? Nobody saw that. Nobody saw me with my iced coffee frozen like a freaking popsicle in the middle of the winters in Boston. I still have frostbite on my fingertips. Nobody saw me digging ditches. Nobody saw me sitting in the parking lot of seminars eating carrots and celery and dip because I couldn't afford to buy anything at the restaurant at the seminars. Nobody saw any of that. Right? Nobody saw me walk in the halls late at night while my house was in pre-foreclosure. Nobody saw me negotiating a short sale through another guy on my own residence so that I could get out of the deal. Nobody saw me getting ripped off by the hard money lender and the attorney who were in cahoots together and nearly stole my house and every dime I had in my bank account. Nobody saw any of that shit. Nobody sees that stuff. And nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it. And that's the problem. You see these flashy guys with their cars, boats, and leather coats and shiny suits. And you'd think they walked on water, like there was never a problem. I learned something a long time ago, that it's all about progress and not perfection. And one of the things you just said, which I loved, was, what is the definition of kind of like a successful moment? Is it 1 week of study? Is it 2 months? Is it 2 years? Are you all done? Do you know everything after 2 years? And the answer is that is a big fat no, an absolute no. If you go talk to any of the bigwigs on Wall Street, if you go talk to any of the massive hedge fund guys, they got to where they are because they always surrounded themselves with people who were smarter than they were. And that really is one of the things that I've done often and done well. But it's step by step. I mean, look, I'm not in my office. I'm at home today, but I got a big whiteboard in my office, and on there is my deal flow. I'm old school, man. Like, I like to see what's going on every day. And right at the top of my board, it says, replace my fear with faith and then act, right? So that's the progress, the action.
Yeah.
But then underneath it, it says, are my actions in line with my intentions? Because we're really good as human beings at being busy. You said it earlier, I'm too busy. Busy doing what? What are you really doing, right? What is your allocation of time? What is your step-by-step process to move forward? Mm-hmm. And some people are like, oh, that just, I'm gonna, forget it. They're the complainers, they're the whiners, they're the ones who blame everybody else. And, you got to own, I think it will be a good idea to look in the mirror and own whatever is going on in your life, because you created it, nobody else, right? Yeah. Nobody else. So, it's an interesting place to be, man, because you can't make excuses anymore. And I've stood on stages all over this country and internationally. I've taught in England, I've taught in Canada, taught about personal development and motivation and implementation of business strategies. And one thing I've kind of hung my hat on is you can make excuses or you can make progress, but you choose which one you want to make, right? Do you want to make an excuse today or do you want to progress today? And if you can own, right, be self-accountable, be accountable for your own actions, to thine own self be true, which isn't easy. I get it wrong every day, right? Yeah. But if you can do that, identify it and then step into it, or as my friend Jack Canfield says, lean into it, right? Jack Canfield, author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, lean into it. Then, you have an opportunity, you have a chance. But if you do nothing, you know what the results are. You get nothing, right? Yeah. So
I love those quotes. Yeah, and I love that and again, it's interesting because we didn't even really discuss what path we were going to go with this conversation, which is what I love about it. But I really like that idea. My wife and I talk about this a lot, right? So first, what are your core values? People talk about core values related to business, but what are your personal core values? And then part two of that is, you just said the words, do your actions reflect that?
Right.
Could someone who's watching me without me knowing understand what my core values are, right? So if my core values say that I should be a good and honest person, but when no one's looking, I'm trying to rip someone off for a couple pennies, that doesn't align with my core values. So do your actions align with that? I really love that quote.
I had a guy say to me one time, the definition of humility is doing something for somebody else and keeping your mouth shut. Let that sink in, right?
Yes.
Humility. You do something for somebody else and you keep your mouth shut. You will find the people who talk the loudest and tell you how great they are and look at all the work I did and I'm this and I'm that. Right or wrong, I don't ever want to be somebody who tears somebody down to build somebody else up. But at the end of the day, I just read something on LinkedIn, and it was a little blurb about be wary of the people who are quiet, right? Because in silence is creation. It was talking about meetings, being in the corporate world at meetings, and now there's always one or two blowhards. And this is me. I never stop freaking talking, and now I'm like crapping on people who talk all the time. But the point of this is, be wary of the people in meetings. There's the blowhards who want to be heard, right? It doesn't matter whether they're right or wrong. They just want to be the loudest. And we can identify 3 of those people just in that one statement alone.
Sure.
But what this article said was be wary of the quiet note takers, for they are studying and they are learning and they are waiting for their time to implement. And when they implement with precision. They implement with laser focus, because they haven't just been blustering around, trying to put a plan together. Like they've looked at the landscape. What is going on? What's going to happen next? What can I learn more about? And it's okay to learn. Learning's fantastic. But then when they implement, they take over. They jump, they jump to the head of the line. And I just thought that was pretty cool, because I would suggest you could also have that kind of a conversation, a moment, introspectively, as well as on the outside, talking to somebody else. If I can look at myself and say, hey Dave, are you just talking for the sake of talking, or do you have something of value to bring? Right? Can you help Bob in his journey one more time? Can you whatever it is, Dave, that you have that's God-given, that's a value, that's a talent that you've learned, a personality, a connection, can you do that? And if you do it, then do it.
Yeah.
Don't hold it back like as a currency to use, or a leverage. I think it's I don't want to sound corny, but again, it's like that Zig Ziglar quote. And it says, if you want everything you want in life, just figure out how to give everybody else what they want in life, right? Service oriented. And a lot of people say that, but they don't necessarily do it. Like you said, guy said to me one time, the truth always comes at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're looking in the mirror. That's when the truth shows up, because there's nobody else around.
No one's around. That's right.
It's your own fear, your own doubt, your own insecurity, your own joy, your own energy, your own focus, right? All of those components. So, look, dude, I love these kinds of conversations.
No, this is great. I love the mindset stuff. I'd like to transition just a little bit over and talk a little bit about, where your business is now at this point. I know you're doing some larger multifamily things. You're investing in Boston, but you're also investing in Florida. So what does your business look like today, as far as from a multifamily investment perspective?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's like, the market is slightly volatile right now, especially the capital markets.
Yeah.
We always used to say, don't fight the Fed, because the interest rates were so low. Right now, the interest rates are high. Now, are we supposed to fight the Fed now? I don't know. When do you stand up and fight the Fed? Guess what? You don't.
Yeah.
You don't fight the Fed, right? You learn what the strategy is that's appropriate to hunt yield for your business, your investors, right? For your community, so that you continue to be successful through this next phase of real estate. So for us, we are multifamily. When I find a deal that makes sense, when we underwrite it, we'll take it down if we can, if we're not outbid, whatever the case may be. But we transitioned or pivoted, I would say, 12 months ago. If you look at the cap rates nationwide 12 months ago on existing assets, it was subpar 3 stuff. It's sub 3 cap rates was trading everywhere. And it's very hard, I feel, as a GP, as an operator, to offer a authentic deal to an LP, your limited partner community, if you're buying on a sub 3 cap. There's no meat on that bone. The only meat on that bone is now pro forma meat through annual rent increases. And some of these deals that I saw a year ago, they were 10-year holds with 5 to 7 to 10% rent increases year over year. Well, yeah, it looks great when you look at the IRRs and all of that crap at the end of it, but is it real? So we looked at what was so skinny in the market, and we stepped back and said, well, as a GP, we have one job: hunt yield and perform, right? Find a good yield that investors like, and then execute and perform on that. So to fast forward to today, I'm very blessed that my acquisitions team and my investment team, Walter Novicki, our Chief Investment Officer, has over a quarter century in Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Southwest Florida market, which, as we know, is better than New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Could be better. Could not. I don't care. You do what you want to do. We're going to do what we do. So
Sure.
we like that market, and the economics and the data supports Florida for what we do. The population growth in Florida has been massive. Retirees statistically will bring 3 to 4 support positions for every retiree that comes down, primarily healthcare, service industry, house cleaning, landscapers, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just seen a massive boom down there. And there is not enough existing multifamily assets to support the influx of population. So when we look at that data set, we then say, well, how can we service that need for population? And we're doing that through build for rent and ground up construction. My partner, Walter, like I said, down there over 25 years, has done a ton of ground up construction. So all of those pieces are in place. And basically, this is kind of an image that works for me. Maybe it works for you and the folks that listen to us, but in every community, I don't care whether you're in New Jersey, whether you're in California, Florida, Midwest, Chicago, it doesn't matter where you are. There's a breakfast joint where a group of people meet 2 or 3 times a week, right? And that group of people, they know what the hell is going on. They know what's going on at City Hall. They know what improvement, land improvement. They know the path of progress. They know that Charlie O'Reilly's wife just left him and he's got to sell his 120 unit property. They know that some big conglomerate is moving in up in the Northeast corridor and they're buying up land. Like they know what's going on. Well, I'm very blessed to say that Walter is one of those guys in my market.
Okay,
so it
great.
gives me an edge, right? Yeah, it gives me an edge. And, in the resi market, we used to call it the pocket listing, right?
Yes.
So to give you an example, we got a heads up about just over a year ago on a plot of land in Fort Myers on what's called McGregor Boulevard. And McGregor Boulevard is the main thoroughfare through Fort Myers, and it goes down to Captiva Island, Sanibel Island, those vacation areas.
Sure. Beautiful area.
Yeah, it's great. It's such a great piece of land. But anyway, the point of it is inside scoop. We picked this up for 700. I think we paid for it, 700,000 for this piece of land, which was already entitled for an office/retail space, 17,000 square feet. The day after we closed on it, we got an offer for 1.1 million just on the land.
Wow.
So that's what I mean by an inside scoop.
Yeah.
We're building our own headquarters there. We should be breaking ground in a few months. But we're doing ground up construction, multifamily. We have a build and a raise going on right now for a 106 unit apartment complex in Cape Coral. That targets out at a 3x to our LP partners. We have about 600 build for rent single family communities located in different lots, Rotunda, all the way down to southwest Cape Coral. So we got a lot of work going on. We got 4 projects in various phases of construction and/or development right now. We're aggressive.
Wow.
I'm up here in Boston trying to raise the capital. Walter and the team's down there making sure that everybody shows up on time every time, gets what needs to be done. But it's a different world, man. I mean, this isn't quick turn real estate. It's not a $5,000, $10,000 check. We're playing with hundreds of millions of dollars today. But our investors see the potential, and it's nothing more exciting than watching an investor get it. And when they understand it, that doctor, that lawyer, that restaurant owner, that business professional who is, I use the word stuck, and I don't mean it in a negative sense, but that well-paid individual who is still in a well-paid job, right? A doctor is still a doctor, but so he earns $1 million a year, but if he doesn't show up for work, he doesn't get paid. So they don't have that access to these great opportunities that are in the market for passive cash flow. And then of course, there's also equity that's built over time. And look, man, you and I know this because we're deep in the weeds and we're in this game, but statistically, there is not a better hedge against inflation than building, right?
Yeah.
Building new assets and being able to cash flow an asset. So it's an interesting time, but we're all in, baby. We're all in. There's no half measures.
Well, what's interesting to me, and you and I spoke, I guess, middle of last summer. We had a phone conversation. And I appreciate that. And you had mentioned to me that you were looking to move into potentially building ground up for rental, and it's very interesting because it's something that I guess I never had thought about. Right, so you just you talk to a lot of investors, the idea of buying a property and increasing the value, right? Adding equity or, bringing it back to life or whatever. I've been in thousands of conversations about that. But now, since our conversation, I've heard a few other investors talk about this idea that maybe there isn't enough rental housing, and maybe the answer isn't to try and buy a property for a significantly low cap rate and hope that rents are going to go up. And we're talking about millennials renting, correct? Right. We're talking about retirees renting. We're talking about, in the single family world, mortgage rates are increasing. And now people who are looking to buy homes that weren't on the market we're coming out of a phase where there were no homes on the market. So they couldn't get in because the homes weren't on the market and the prices were too high. Now the interest rate's going up and maybe they still can't afford, but they have to live somewhere.
Sure.
And they don't want the C units. They don't want the B minus C plus units. They want newer construction. They want a property that has the higher tech, inside, right? They want a smart apartment or a smart home or those kind of things.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's a classification it's called builders by choice, renters by choice, right? And you just identified them, the millennial who can't afford a single family home or doesn't want it, right? Or doesn't want it. My 27-year-old son is not interested in owning his own house. It's not on his it's not on his radar. You also hit the point that, look at it this way: Cape Coral, city of Cape Coral, pulled down and had a study done to find out how many rental units do we need based off of our population now and what is projected to grow. I think they did the study in late 20 or 21, and they teamed out and they said, we need 1,800 rentable units per year from now through to 2027. That was what they targeted out. If you look at the deliverable pipeline through permitting in the city of Cape Coral, 300 this year, 400 next year, and as it continues, so that by 2027, the city of Cape Coral will be in a 10,000 unit deficit based on its population growth.
Wow.
So think about that for a second. Could I potentially just build rental units in the city of Cape Coral and do exceptionally well? I think the answer to that is a resounding yes, right? So we'll bring 103 units online. There's another investor that we have a collaborative relationship with. He's in the process of trying to get through permitting for another 600 units in a multifamily build. So where are the people? What do they need? And can you service their need? It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's housing or whether it's whatever the case may be. So it doesn't mean that when the buying opportunities come into the market in existing structures, doesn't mean that we won't buy them. If they make sense, we will. We'll raise capital like everybody else. But to be able to be nimble enough to adjust to market conditions, I think that's one of the biggest advantages we have at Freedom Venture, is that we're lean enough that we can decide what we want to do and able to take down the very best opportunities when we find them. So I like where we're at right now. It's a good position to be in.
Well, that's very impressive. That's very impressive. I want to be conscious of your time. I appreciate you coming here. I'd like to jump, if we have just a couple more minutes, into our final three questions.
Sure.
And there's been so much to unpack, and I feel like you and I've had conversations in the past, and we just go on and on and on. So I don't want to turn this into a Joe Rogan 2-hour episode.
Yeah, right. Joe who? This is Bob and Dave show.
That's
Joe
correct.
what?
That's correct. So first question in our final questions, and I think you sort of touched on this already, but what is your definition of success?
What a great question. To be present, that for me is success. And to be brutally honest with you, Bob, I fail miserably every day, right? And who do I want to be present for? I want to be present for the people that I love, right? To be, when my kid is talking about Brawl Stars and his latest video game, and look at me, Dad, I'm riding my bike, or whatever's going on, I want to be able to be present for that. And absolutely for my wife as well, right? She's the rock that I get to stand on so I can look cool. So I got to be present there, right? Am I taking care of her needs as well? And if I can do those things, then I've got a nice foundation to go out and be successful in business and spirituality and health and wellness. And again, I fail miserably every day, but I have little increments of success, which keeps me engaged and keeps me moving forward.
Great. Well, keep failing forward, right?
Always, brother.
Yeah.
Always fall forward. Great. For sure.
So for someone who's new to investing, or even just learning to focus on their goals and their path to success, do you have a book recommendation to maybe get them started?
Yeah, it's kind of old school, but I like Jack Canfield's Secrets of Success. Jack Canfield was the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. I got to actually hang out with him for a day at his house. Super guy, highly intellectual. I'm more of a gut reaction guy, but he can lay it out in nice steps that everybody can follow. And you can use those steps for business implementation, for personal development, for relationships, health and wellness. It's a formula. Powerful book. And of course, The Secret by Rhonda Byrne and the Law of Attraction. That's like a little biblical book for me.
Great. Yeah, I was going to touch on The Secret earlier when we were talking about, action. I think sometimes, not to go on a separate tangent, but I think sometimes people think The Secret, that there's the first part is the only part, which is thinking you can do it, but you have to take an action.
Act as if. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
So before we get to the final question, just, I want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time. It's been a lot of fun and so much fun to catch up. How can we support you? How can people reach out to you, contact you, and provide?
How to support a guy like me, Bob? Stay in the game. Don't give up, whoever you are, right? Whoever you are. You never know who's going to cross paths with who and at what time. People, I've been using this phrase a lot recently. People either show up for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, right? And you don't know what that is until it gets there. But, to reach out to us directly, you can get us at freedomventure.com. I'm old school. I have a phone number, 781-922-4418. Or Google my name, Dave Seymour, Seymour. You'll find me. I've got all of the America's Most Wanted stuff off of the internet now, so that's good. We're nice and clean.
That's great.
But you can find us. Those that seek shall find, my brother.
Great. And I know you're very available on all the socials and all, and you're really good at those kind of things.
Yeah.
So final question: if you could think back to a young Dave Seymour, ages 10 to 12 years old, knowing what you've learned so far along your journey, what are 3 pieces of advice that you would give to young Dave, or really any preteen child, to help guide towards success?
Oh man, so good. I guess just affirmation that you're going to be okay, right? Like if I sat down with 10-year-old Dave, 14-year-old, 16-year-old Dave, I'd just tell him, you're okay, buddy. You're okay just the way you are, man. Like you're loved. Just give him a hug. You're going to be okay. You're loved. My wife has the most challenging job in our house of raising young boys to be great men, right?
Sure.
And I get to come in and put the whipped cream on the top and the cherry and make it look all pretty. But, you know, if I called either one of my boys into the office now and I asked them to tell you what I tell them every day before I drop them off to school, they wouldn't miss a beat. It has to be a leader and not a follower. Don't let the other kids catch up, and always bring the hammer down. Be all in, fail forward, like we said. And just to know that there is an inert potential in all of us. And as parents, we have a responsibility to grow that potential, not squash it. As crazy as the dream may be, reinforce it. If they say they want to learn how to fly, teach them how to fly, right? Don't constrict that God-given spirit in young people. And I only say that because I experienced both sides of the equation. It wasn't until I was like, 36 years old that I woke up, Bob, right?
Sure.
But I've tried to make up for the 36 years, the time prior since then, to bring an impact not only in my life but in others. So, be a leader, not a follower. Great. Don't let the other folks catch up. All right, never, and always bring that hammer down. Go all in, baby.
I love it.
All in.
I love it. Dave Seymour, thank you so much for being on the Healthy Investor Podcast. I appreciate it, my friend. Hopefully I can see you soon. Take care,
man.
Thanks so much for joining me on the Healthy Investor Podcast. Check out the show notes for more information about connecting with our guest. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please head on over to iTunes and leave a positive rating and review. It would mean the world to me. I'm grateful for your support, and I wish you an abundance of success on your journey to healthy investments and a healthy life.